Welcome into Off the Hook Sports. I am your host, Caleb. Calhoun. Dave is out today. We continue with our coverage of SEC Media Days. A lot to get to. Going to talk about Tennessee losing out on a commitment to South Carolina. Normally, I don't cover them losing out on commitments, but this is kind of a big one, so we got to talk about it, ask if it's a concern. David Cutcliffe tells an interesting Tennessee story about how he ended up with the Vols. That'll be what the H. SEC Media Days, we're going to play four downs and discuss the teams that went out yesterday, as Tennessee will actually play all four teams that took the stage on Wednesday at SEC Media Days. So we're going to talk about that. Greg Sankey talking more about the standstill between the SEC and Big Ten. A lot to get to on that. That's going to be hot or cold. And Finebaum says Tennessee will not make the college football playoff. We're going to play bank on it there. So smash that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn your notifications on, tell a friend. We are about to get rolling here with today's tough question, and it involves Tennessee on the recruiting trail. Tennessee lost out on in-state four-star offensive lineman Kamari Blair Wednesday night, who committed to South Carolina. Blair is a four-star on 247 Sports Composite, a four-star on On3 Composite, technically just a three-star on 247 Sports, but he is an attendee of Kirkwood High School in Clarksville, Tennessee, weighs about 6'5.5 pounds stands at 6'5.5 pounds stands at 6'5.5", 281 pounds. He is in the 2026 recruiting class. The Vols do have three offensive linemen committed in their 2026 class so far. The headliner of those three is Gabriel Osenda, who is a borderline 5-star, depending on the service you go by. But Kamari Blair was one that they really expected to land. Again, he's from Clarksville. He's an in-state guy. It's one, typically when Tennessee has success, they have to go into South Carolina to raid players, but they don't expect to lose players in their area to South Carolina. Clarksville is not even in East Tennessee, where it would be close to South Carolina. Clarksville is in Montgomery County, which is on the border between Tennessee and Kentucky, west of Nashville, almost as far from South Carolina as you could possibly be, unless you go into the northwest corner of the state, to be fair. So taking that into account, it was definitely a surprise that Blair committed to South Carolina over Tennessee. So today's tough question is this: should Tennessee be worried about some of its losses on the recruiting trail? Now, there haven't been that many, but once you lose an in-state guy who is a highly touted guy, and you're Tennessee and you try to keep a lock on the state, you got to ask that question. That is today's tough question. It is brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. Also, remember, we're live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. So again, today's tough question: with Tennessee losing Kamari Blair to South Carolina, should the Vols be concerned about some of their recruiting losses? And I'm going to put that on the poll question real quick. So we're going to say, with Tennessee losing an in-state four-star OL to South Carolina, should Vols be concerned? And we'll just say, or how about this? Should the Vols be concerned about losing out on a four-star in-state offensive lineman to South Carolina? And it's a simple yes or no. You guys can vote on the poll question now. It is up, and give me your thoughts. Should the Vols be concerned about losing out on a four-star in-state offensive lineman to South Carolina? I'm going to say yes. Kamari Blair is one of the best players in the state. Ole Miss was in the running for him too. I would have actually had him, if Tennessee was going to lose out on him, I would have predicted him to go to Ole Miss more than South Carolina. Funny enough. Florida State, Kentucky, and Wisconsin were also in play. He was recently in Knoxville for a visit. Saw Josh Heupel on June 20th, and that's the most recent visit he had of all of his schools. So with that in mind, you have to wonder, is this an issue? Is this a concern that Tennessee's losing out on him? I think so. This guy, his last visit was to Tennessee. He's an in-state guy. He's a highly touted guy. You would think you would trust Josh Heupel over Shane Beamer in terms of offensive lineman, but this comes into a real big question. It's something we've talked about on this show, which is that Josh Heupel has yet to start an offensive lineman that he signed out of high school, and he's entering year 5 at Tennessee. You don't think that's standing out to a guy like Kamari Blair? And if Tennessee has trouble recruiting offensive linemen because of that fact, things are only going to get worse going forward. So, you can bring out, and James Ferris says this, to be fair, says South Carolina had to fork out the money for a 4-star, not concerned. No one picks Beamer over Heupel. And Blind Squirrel Sports says, I begrudgingly agree with Caleb, but I also vote yes. And GBMFO says, does point out that they're on a recruiting tear and it isn't over. That's all fine. And I'm not knocking what you guys are saying, but specifically in the trenches, there are starting to be some questions raised about Tennessee recruiting offensive linemen. This year will be a big test for that, because Josh Heupel is going to have to start at least 2 linemen that he signed out of high school. And until then, you should get the top talent in the state. And Randy brings up a great point. Doesn't matter if you're Tennessee, you should get the top talent in the state. Very good point, Randy. And so I think you got to raise the question. Is it an overall recruiting concern or just the type of players Tennessee is recruiting, particularly on the offensive line? Because I got to be honest, if I'm an offensive lineman, I wouldn't commit to Tennessee out of high school. I just wouldn't. I mean, they haven't, again, nobody who has signed with Tennessee out of high school has started on the offensive line under Josh Heupel. Nobody who signed with Josh Heupel at Tennessee out of high school has started on the offensive line under Josh Heupel. That's a big deal. Today's Tough Question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win. Why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
The poll question is up. Should the Vols be concerned about losing out on a 4-star in-state offensive lineman in South Carolina? It is 50-50, yes and no. We're going to go to the message boards a little bit. GBMFO says that Tennessee just got an O-line commit. Maybe they have limited spots. Maybe he was no longer a priority. Yeah, but GBMFO, in today's day of recruiting, you don't have to worry about that as much with spots. You can kind of nudge guys out, particularly with the fact that it's more roster limits than scholarship limits on the recruiting trail. And at the same time, I don't think they would have gone for I don't think they would have gone for a couple of the linemen they got had they known they were going to land Kamari Blair. I mean, let's not forget that they have landed Gabriel Lucinda, who is a borderline 5-star, depending on where you go. I'll go ahead and call him a 5-star. He's a 5-star. That's fair. I can go ahead and just say Gabriel Lucinda is a 5-star. JB Shabazz is a fringe 4-star, but Edward Baker is a straight up 3-star. I'm telling you, they probably would have taken Kamari Blair over Edward Baker, despite Edward Baker's size at 335 pounds. So no, I got to be honest. I do really think this is a concern if you're Tennessee, and it's kind of going to be an issue. Adam says, how many 4 development projects do we really want so that they can transfer elsewhere later? Well, yeah, but then Tennessee signing 3-star linemen too, so we have to ask about that. Nathaniel Kim, if you're just jumping in, you said, which one do we miss out on? I thought we had commits already. I'm talking about Kamari Blair, who was an in-state 4-star offensive lineman committed to South Carolina. Derek, you're right about the stat with David Sanders. He's about to end that stat in 40 days of Josh Heupel not starting a guy that he signed out of high school on the offensive line at Tennessee. But David Sanders, at the same time, we don't know how good he'll be. And it won't just be David Sanders. Either William Sadler, Max Anderson, or somebody else is going to have to start in the middle too, even with Wendell Moe and Sam Pendleton. Dylan says he feels like in-state talent is completely overblown in today's age of NIL. He says, lock down your borders, but letting 1 or 2 slip through isn't that big of a deal anymore. Dylan, that's fair, but it kind of is for Tennessee. Tennessee at their peak, yes, they plucked guys out of Georgia, Ohio, Alabama, wherever, but they always secured in-state guys that really wanted to play for Tennessee. That really always stood out. Adam says 4-star linemen want big money, but they won't play for the first year or two. Then you have to renegotiate when they are ready. You basically pay a kid to train and practice. Maybe that might be true with offensive linemen. That might be certainly true, particularly when offensive line is the hardest position to evaluate. It's the hardest position to project beyond even quarterback. So a lot of guys may not be so sure they'll make it to the NFL, particularly with them being injury prone. So if you're a highly touted offensive lineman, you may command some NIL money up front more than others. And that's probably fair. So hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn your notifications on. We are going to move on now to What the H, and it involves a beloved Tennessee offensive coordinator. David Cutcliffe, in a recent interview, said that when he accepted an offer to coach at Tennessee, he accepted without even knowing what he was going to be paid. As everybody remembers, David Cutcliffe, who is famous for coaching Peyton Manning and then Eli Manning and then turning Duke into a winner, and a very, very, very highly respected coach in college football, one of the greatest coaches in college football, in my opinion. David Cutcliffe was first hired at Tennessee as an assistant in 1982. He was brought on by Philip Fulmer. Look, criticize Philip Fulmer in a lot of different ways. The one person that Philip Fulmer scouted over everybody else and recognized his greatness, there are two. There is John Chavis. However you feel about him, John Chavis became a longtime respected defensive coordinator in the SEC. And there was David Cutcliffe. Those were former guys who he believed in when no one else did. Okay, John Chavis, when he promoted Chavis to defensive coordinator in 95, was highly criticized and then became a longtime defensive coordinator in the SEC. Philip Fulmer was the one who pushed to hire David Cutcliffe as an assistant in 1982. And then in 83 to 88, he became the tight ends coach. In 89, he moved over to running backs coach. And Philip Fulmer chose him to be the quarterbacks coach in 1990 and 1991. And then Fulmer decided to name him offensive coordinator in 1992 when he took over as interim head coach and then full-time head coach in 1993. And so Philip Fulmer scouted and discovered David Cutcliffe. Cutcliffe was telling the story recently, and for everything he's well known for, he said on 102.5 The Game that he had developed a friendship with Fulmer when Fulmer was an assistant at Vanderbilt, believe it or not. Now, for those who don't remember, Philip Fulmer was an assistant at Vanderbilt back in the 70s. Fulmer returned to Tennessee Fulmer played for Tennessee from 69 to 71. He then was a student assistant, but then he spent 5 years at Wichita. He was a student assistant from 72 to 73. He spent 5 years at Wichita State from 74 to 78. And then he went to Vanderbilt in 79. And that year, while he was at Vanderbilt, and then he returned to Tennessee in 1980 to work his way up from line coach to offensive coordinator to head coach. But the year 79, at that time, Cutcliffe, who's from Birmingham and went to the University of Alabama under Bear Bryant, was an assistant coach at that time he was an assistant coach at Banks High School in Alabama, ended up becoming a head coach in 1980 and 1981. So while Cutcliffe was an assistant at Banks High School in Alabama, which for those who don't know, that's in Birmingham, Philip Fulmer was an assistant coach at Vanderbilt. And he said that Fulmer was recruiting and signed one of the kids that Cutcliffe was coaching out of Banks High School. Cutcliffe said, I was a head football coach doing exactly what I wanted to do because that's what saved my life at 15 was George White and his staff. And then he said, and then Fulmer went to Tennessee and called me and said that Coach Majors was going to come to an August practice. And he said that Fulmer and Majors went down to witness. So Cutcliffe was an assistant at Banks in 79, became the head coach in 1980. Fulmer and Majors, when Fulmer was at Tennessee in 1980, it was either 80 or 81. Fulmer and Majors went down to witness an August practice with Cutcliffe at Banks High School. And Fulmer was supposed to be there for 15 minutes and stayed the whole practice. Cutcliffe says, quote, I didn't talk to him because in that era, I was the offensive and defensive coordinator and the head coach. I had 4 assistants. That's how we ran it. And I didn't know what he wanted. So I called the team up and let them go. And then he came over and said, can I see you in your office a minute? I thought I was in trouble. And then he said, where'd you learn to coach like that? And I told him at Alabama how things were done. And I told him that my high school coach was exceptional. Cutcliffe added, quote, Coach Majors was a great practice coach. He was a great strategist of the game because he'd been a single wing tailback and a free safety. He called it a safety man, but he was calling things as a player. But he looked at me and said, that may be the best high school football practice I've ever seen. He said, I'm going to call you after the season and offer you a job. And I'm in my mind like, yeah, right. Tell me which player of mine you want. And sure enough, Philip called me and said, Coach Majors wants to fly you up and talk to you about the job. So that's how I ended up at Tennessee. It was an interesting trip up. I was single. He offered me the job and I accepted it without ever asking him what he was going to pay me. And when I got my first check, I went to check with him. I said, "Excuse me, coach, what length is this for?" He said, "That's for a month." He said, "It's not healthy for a young SEC assistant football coach to make too much money." So about 2 years later, we're in Miami recruiting, and I met my wife-to-be, and I knew I wanted to get married. And I said, "Coach, I hadn't thanked you properly." He said, "For what?" And I said, "Coach, I'm the healthiest assistant football coach in all of college football, but I don't need a raise." But that's how I ended up at Tennessee, and very fortunate to develop the relationship with Coach Fulmer through those years and those other coaches that we worked with. So Fulmer found David Cutcliffe in his one season at Vanderbilt trying to recruit a player from Cutcliffe at Banks High School. And then Majors came and witnessed Cutcliffe coaching practice. Now, for those who don't know, Majors was famous for how he ran his practices. And he was very big and loved practice. That was his big thing. That's what he imprinted on Cutcliffe more than anything else. And if you know Cutcliffe, Cutcliffe once said he coaches because he loves practice. He specifically coached because he loved coaching practice. But this is a what the H, because Cutcliffe was hired not for his guru, not for him being a guru, but because of how he ran practices. Kind of interesting, right? What the H, brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition. RickTerryJewelry.com.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
So with that news about how David Cutcliffe ran practices, I'm going to put up a poll question, and I'll let you guys pick. But it's going to be, what was David Cutcliffe's best attribute? Okay, and here are going to be the answers. QB guru, how he ran practices, ability to adapt to his personnel, ability to adapt offense to his personnel, or adapting offense to personnel, or, and our final one, character. So you guys go ahead and vote on that, and I want to know what you guys think. Because what was David Cutcliffe's best attribute? QB guru, how he ran practices, adapting offense to his personnel, or character? Now, a lot of you might say QB guru. I mean, what he did with Peyton Manning and Eli Manning stands out, but also what he did with Eric Ainge from 2005 to 2006 was absolutely incredible. But I'm going to go actually adapting offense to his personnel. Now, you have to have the talent to do this, but remember, Cutcliffe went from Heath Schuler running a multiple offense to Peyton Manning, pure pro style, to T. Martin running back to a multiple offense. Okay. He mixed things up at Duke a lot. He added the no huddle with Eric Ainge. The other thing he did that was very successful was he didn't just maximize quarterbacks. We just know the quarterbacks, but he maximized receivers too. One of the most notable things he did when he got back to Tennessee in 2006, he shortened the receiver rotation from 5-6 guys to 3 guys. He said, Robert Meacham's going to be our go-to guy. Jason Swain's our number 2. Brett Smith is our slot. It's just that. So that's another part. Cutcliffe's insistence on the little things in practice, though, and the fundamentals really, really stood out more than anything else in the intense way in which he ran practice. He said one time, I mean, he was very big where if he didn't think players believed in certain things he was doing, he would make them do a drill that would last 2 weeks and wouldn't even run practices anymore. He would just make them do drills for 2 weeks. He was very, very big on drills, making everything second nature. Cutcliffe, more than any other coach, focused on the little things where there weren't going to be little fundamental mistakes that happened on the offense. His character, I can't speak enough of. I think David Cutcliffe is one of the best people of all time. It has hurt him on the coaching ranks, though. I mean, we're talking about a guy who, again, he got fired from Ole Miss because he refused to scapegoat his staff, to his credit. And then Tennessee nixed the potential hire of him because he didn't want to leave certain staff members behind when he was leaving Duke. So taking that into account, I think Cutcliffe's character was his best attribute. And I think Johnny Majors and Philip Fulmer saw that from him as much as they saw anything else. But his character was incredible. And so, yeah, Adam, you asked what do I know about Cutcliffe's practices? It was mainly just the way he focused on so many little things. He was a schematic coach, don't get me wrong. But Cutcliffe was very much he didn't fully flesh out certain schemes that he ran because he'd rather spend most of his time making sure basic fundamentals were down. And then he felt that if you had those fundamentals second nature, and if he had the talent, he could adapt whatever scheme he wanted to the personnel. And so you never saw him full out on a scheme when he did things. Like, for instance, when he installed the no huddle at Tennessee in 2007, he had tinkered with it and had experimented with it with the Saints for a couple of years. He had gone down there to study it for a minute when they had Drew Brees. He brings it in. He ushers in the no huddle offense at Tennessee, but it's not an exact no huddle because Eric Ainge is a lot of times looking at the sideline for what to call. And he ushered in the Wildcat too at that time. What you always saw with Cutcliffe was not a full-on commitment to offensive wrinkles, but just enough to adapt to his personnel and knowing that their little things were second nature and knowing they would be great with that. You got to give him credit for that. So I think David Cutcliffe's best attribute was the way he ran practices, but I think all these things were great. I mean, honestly, the only one that was bad was his character. And I don't mean that was bad. His character is amazing. He's got impeccable character. I'm saying his character hurt him in the coaching ranks because it did get him fired from Ole Miss. So that's kind of one of the intriguing things. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. What play to win, why settle? BanksandJones.com. We're live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used. East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. When we come back, we're going to talk about different teams that Tennessee will play. For the four that took the stage at SEC Media Days on Wednesday will all face Tennessee this year. We're going to give our take on some of the things that were said. Stick with us. 2 minutes of The Hook Sports.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
Hello, ma'am. I'm here to look at that plumbing problem.
Oh boy. Yep. You're gonna need a whole new sink.
If this toilet is no good, you're gonna need a new one ASAP. You are not gonna believe this. You're all out of milk. Have you heard about our service plan?
I need to call Scott's.
Scott's Plumbing, your trusted neighborhood plumber since 1977.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. Dare to compare.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Welcome back to Off the Hook Sports. Hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn your notifications on. We continue with our coverage of SEC Media Days. And this will be 4 downs that we're about to discuss because Alabama, Florida, Mississippi State, and Oklahoma all took the stage at SEC Media Days on Wednesday. Tennessee beat all 4 teams in 2024, but they will likely be underdogs to at least 2 of those teams in 2025 since they have to face them on the road, Alabama and Florida. Oklahoma, Tennessee blew out, but Tennessee gets them at home, and they expect to be different with John Mateer. Mississippi State, on the other hand, was horrible with Jeff Lebby. They expect to be better this year, but we don't know exactly how good they will be. So this is Four Downs, brought to you by Ted Russell Ford, live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. We start with a message, and I deliver this from Cooper Mays, since I don't have the board, that he wants you to like and subscribe. Coming from Coop, first down, Alabama. Kalen DeBoer and Deontay Lawson were talking a lot yesterday about the transition, but they say they are ready for a revenge tour after they went 9-4 last year with 3 losses by one possession. Deontay Lawson said it was hard last year. He said, quote, "You're coming from Coach Saban to Coach DeBoer. Everyone is going to have something to say. Everyone wants to know how's the new coach or what's the difference or something like that. But yeah, we're all here for Coach DeBoer." I remember he walked in, the first day he walked in, we all set up in our chairs ready to go. And from that day, we all been on the DeBoer train, probably now more than ever. Lawson said, "We're starving. We're not hungry. We're like starving." And that's different. That's different. Just to see no one transfer out of here when the time came, man, it just shows you we got guys willing to do what they have to do to make us the most successful team that we can be. I'm just super excited. I know the guys are ready, and we go at it with each other every day, and I'm sure we all can't wait until we see a different color jersey, even though we haven't even got into camp yet. And DeBoer, meanwhile, pointed out that he's spending less time building the culture of the program and more time breaking down what happened in the losses last year. Pointed out that that 3 of the 4 losses were by just one possession. And he said in some cases, it wasn't just something anyone was doing wrong. It was just, man, be better. It's not on the players. It's on the coaches. It's just repetitions. Just do more together. More together helps you feel more comfortable. Now I want to address something DeBoer said real quick on this, because he said specifically that he's spending less time building the culture of the program than he had to last year. And a lot of you might ask, what type of culture did he need to build, given what Nick Saban established? Well, let me explain. Kalen DeBoer was trying to build a culture because those players who had committed to Nick Saban were committing to a coach that they could have the full faith and credit in, that very few coaches who could command that. You have to build a culture if you're a new coach coming from that, just to convince players to believe in you. That's part of the culture, and that's what DeBoer was trying to establish last year. He was also trying to hold the team together with his decision to start Jalen Milroe, because even though Ty Simpson was better for his system, the team loved Jalen Milroe, and that culture was established before he got there, and he couldn't lose the team his first year. So to protect the culture, he started Milroe, despite being Milroe a terrible fit for his offense, and tried to keep them above water going 9-4. So I give him a big break on that. Now, he brings back Ryan Grubb, the offensive coordinator who was with him at Washington when Michael Penix led them to the national title game. That should be concerning for everybody involved. DeBoer says, quote, "You still don't know week 1 exactly what it's going to look like, right? I know what I've got with these guys. It doesn't guarantee you anything, but it gives you optimism, a lot of excitement, and continue to keep owned in and headed in the right direction altogether." I think, and then it sounds like Ty Simpson leads the way to be the starter. Alabama offensive lineman Caden Proctor said he's confident in the pass protection for, quote, whoever's back there at quarterback. And he said he says that DeBoer shares some of the same qualities as Saban, noting that, quote, "I knew that our athletic director wasn't just going to choose anybody to have this position. And if Coach DeBoer being there is the right fit, then I'm behind it." I say all that to say it sounds like the players have something to prove. The system is finally fully installed, and they do want to play for DeBoer. And yes, that should scare the heck out of everybody involved. I told you guys, I think Alabama Tennessee's most likely loss. I'm sticking with that. I really honestly don't see how they face Alabama or how they beat Alabama. But the second scariest one is Florida and detail-oriented Billy Napier, who, again, the team was left for dead in October, but they finished strong, beating LSU and Ole Miss, knocking Ole Miss out of the college football playoff, changing the narrative completely as they finished the year going 6-1 with DJ Lagway at quarterback, including a 4-game winning streak to end the year. Billy Napier at SEC Media Days was all about DJ Lagway. Says, quote, "It's his team. I think he's growing as a leader, his voice as a leader, how he can affect the other players. Last year at this time, he had no clue what he was in for. I think he obviously knows the system. He knows how to prepare. He can get better. I mean, this guy's got a lot of ceiling here." Lagway, meanwhile, talked about he has had a sauna installed at his home near campus and set up an intricate film projector similar to the ones he saw in the homes of NFL quarterbacks Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins on the quarterback series in Netflix. And he says, I just love this game, eat, sleep, and breathe. That's all I do. Anything I could find that helped me get better at the game, that's what I do. He's basically he's changed his nutrition as well. Look, I'm going to be honest. I think Tennessee should be a little encouraged after what I saw from Florida at SEC Media Days yesterday, and here's why. Florida's strong finish to the season. Yes, it was with DJ Lagway as starter, but it wasn't necessarily because of DJ Lagway as starter. And so putting everything around DJ Lagway and saying it's his team and trying to make it about Lagway, I don't think is a smart move for Napier or the Gators. I'm going to be honest. A lot of other things went right for Florida during that season, during that time. That would be like after Tennessee started 5-0 in 1998 with wins over Florida, Syracuse, and Georgia, where the defense got them to 5-0. Fulham were saying, this is T. Martin's team. No, it wasn't. It became T. Martin's team, but it was not his team at that point. Okay? That was the defense. That was Al Wilson's team. It's not DJ Lagway's team. I'm sorry. So that was second down from Cooper Mays. Tennessee center Cooper Mays comes in for third down, and it's about Oklahoma. Brent Venables bragged about bringing in all these transfers to SEC Media Days. John Mateer and Jaden Knott were both brought to SEC Media Days. Mateer is going to be the new quarterback to replace Jackson Arnold. And Venables said they're good players. They're a lot of fun. They like to work. They're a humble group of guys. He also highlighted Jake Mikula, an offensive lineman who transferred from Stanford. Look, Brent Venables gave off a sign of just desperation with all the transfers, bringing them to SEC Media Days. He's basically starting a new team. He's going the Kiffin route, but he doesn't have the Kiffin X's and O's, and he doesn't have the faith in him from a lot of people. This is a desperate move for everybody. So I'm just going to say up front, I would not be concerned if I'm a Tennessee fan about Oklahoma. There's just not a lot there. 4 Downs brought to you by Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville. New and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. We bring you 4th Down next.
A beacon of hope in a world of high prices. Look to the skies, Knoxville. Super Savings is here. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 Volume Ford dealer. Employee pricing is here. You pay what we pay on all new Ford models. Come see the super dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
All SEC center Cooper Mays brings you 4th Down, and it is Mississippi State. Yes, Jeff Lebby is coming off a 2-10 season and spoke with the media yesterday. And I have to be honest, I think Mississippi State's a big concern for Tennessee. If they're going to get upset somewhere by a team they shouldn't, it would be on the road at Mississippi State. Remember, Blake Shapen had a season-ending injury in Week 4 against Florida last year. Okay? That hurt them. He's now fully healthy, ready to get back on the field. Lebby speaks yesterday and says, I think he basically emphasized growth, and he said, quote, I think making sure I'm doing a great job of empowering the right people inside the program to be able to run with things and be able to do what they need to do inside each department to give us a chance to be the best in all areas. Going to continue. Shapen says that we want to be very explosive, but at the same time, we want to be able to run the football. Totally true. Returning safety Isaac Smith was also there, and he said we lacked execution the whole season, missed tackles, missed assignments. Quite frankly, that's why we lost a lot of games. I think we were last in about everything. We got some guys in the portal that have come in and ready to work and ready to compete. I think we're going to surprise a lot of people this year defensively. Look, I kind of agree with that. Mississippi State's flying under the radar. I fully believe in the Jeff Lebby offense. I think he's one of the best offensive coaches in college football. He has studied under Josh Heupel and Art Briles, and he developed and Lane Kiffin. Okay, so Josh Heupel, Art Briles, Lane Kiffin. He was the offensive coordinator. He was the passing game coordinator for Art Briles when they were putting up huge numbers. And he was the offensive coordinator at Ole Miss under Lane Kiffin when they had early success. Offensive coordinator under, who was it? Who are we talking? Offensive coordinator at UCF under Josh Heupel. Now, yes, under Brent Venables, things did not work out at Oklahoma. Not necessarily his fault. Fully, I would say, and he still got a head coaching job out of that. So let's be fair to him on that front. I think Jeff Lebby is a brilliant offensive mind. And if they get up to snuff this year with Shapen staying healthy, another year in the offense, and he throws some wrinkles as that offense somewhat got figured out in general last year, I think watch out. Mississippi State will be a threat. So yes, Tennessee should be concerned about the Mississippi State willingly flying under the radar should concern Tennessee. Alabama being just elite should concern Tennessee. Oklahoma, Tennessee shouldn't be worried about after what I witnessed from them at SEC Media Days. And I think Tennessee should be less worried about Florida after what I witnessed with them at SEC Media Days because of the way Billy Napier is handling the hype behind DJ Lagway. So hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn your notifications on. When we come back, we're going to talk about something Paul Finebaum said that might get everybody pretty angry. Stick with us. 2 minutes off the hook sports.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln Knoxville.
Hello, ma'am. Here to look at that plumbing problem?
Oh boy. Yep, you're gonna need a whole new sink.
If this toilet is no good, you're gonna need a new one ASAP. You are not gonna believe this. You're all out of milk. Have you heard about our service plan?
I need to call Scott's.
Scott's Plumbing, your trusted neighborhood plumber since 1977.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Welcome back to Off the Hook Sports. Caleb Calhoun here. Hit that like and subscribe button. We now get to have some fun with Paul Finebaum as he decided to call out Tennessee at SEC Media Days on Wednesday. Remember, Tennessee went live on Tuesday at SEC Media Days, and Heupel said we'll have competition at the quarterback position, referring to Joey Aguilar, Jake Berklinger, and true freshman George McIntyre. He praised all three for their summer work, noting how each has developed relationships and a rapport in both the meeting room and on the field. With fall camp less than a month away, Heupel said that none of the contenders had separated themselves, but the team made it sound like they had fallen in love with Joey Aguilar. Paul Finebaum, on the other hand, laughed off what Josh Heupel said. And Paul Finebaum decided to go all in against his alma mater and against his beliefs in his alma mater, probably in a way that would make everybody around here mad. Paul Finebaum, when asked about Tennessee possibly returning to the college football playoff and Heupel saying their expectations haven't changed, called it fiction. Here's his quote. "I love fiction, and it's absolutely fiction. Tennessee is not making it back to the playoff. They lost Nico Iamaleava. They have Joey Aguilar, who went to Appalachian State, transferred to UCLA, and then to Tennessee, all in what seemed like about half an hour. Tennessee will be good, but they're not good enough to make the playoff." Here's something that I can say straight up, and it's Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC, Life Made Better. Bank on it. Tennessee fans should not worry at all about what Paul Finebaum says about them and their possibility to make the playoffs. Paul Finebaum knows SEC ball. He knows it well, okay? But he has not always been right on his predictions. In fact, he's many times been wrong, and more wrong than many could imagine. Okay. And I'm not saying Tennessee will make the college football playoff, but I'll say this. If they miss it, it won't be because they are a worse team. This is a genuine belief I have. They won't miss the playoff because they're a worse team than last year. If they miss the playoff, it's because the schedule's gotten a little more difficult. Where is Tennessee worse? Okay, Jamal McCoy being hurt. Yes, I think Joey Aguilar this year will be better than Nico Iamaleava was last year. Not better than Nico Iamaleava would have been this year, but better than he was last year. I think Tennessee with 3 new receivers is going to be better at receiver. The one area they'll be worse. The one area is in the running game with the interior offensive line and the running back. Fine, but everything else will be better. And yes, that was a huge part of their team this past year. But they should be better everywhere else, assuming Jamal McCoy gets healthy by the end of September. So I'm going to tell you why in a minute, but very clearly, bank on it. Tennessee should not be worried that Paul Finebaum doesn't think they'll make the playoffs because his predictions don't hold water.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
All right, that was bank on it. Let me tell you why Tennessee fans should not take what Paul Finebaum says too seriously. Paul Finebaum was very, very, very skeptical of the Josh Heupel hire when Tennessee hired Josh Heupel in early 2021. He described the hire as, quote, underwhelming and also, quote, not a very imaginative hire. He said that the hire reflected poorly on the Tennessee program, implying it wasn't a desirable job. Finebaum said, this is truth. He said, quote, reality has struck for Tennessee with the Heupel hire. He said, it's a check on the peel of the Tennessee job. He said, quote, frankly, I don't hear anything from Heupel today that would make you think Tennessee will break down any doors. It was like a cattle prod to the system. The expectations have been quieted dramatically. At the end of the search, the reality has struck that this was as good as Tennessee could do. Now, did they settle for Heupel? Possibly. Finebaum also said later, quote, the one thing I feel comfortable and confident about Heupel is that he's going to run a clean program. As soon as I say that, what can that get you in big-time college football is the better question. Can he recruit? I think it will be difficult right now. He may turn a couple of players around. That happens. We've seen that all the time. But ultimately, he's going to have to survive. And now his boss, who just had a coronation the other day, now has some pressure on him. This is his hire. Had he brought in someone else like Jamie Chadwell or Billy Napier, then you could say he went a little bit off center and brought in an up-and-comer. But this is not a very imaginative hire. This is pretty much a pretty underwhelming from a wow appeal standpoint. Yes, that's right. I want to point out that the same Paul Finebaum who said Tennessee's not making the playoff this year implied Tennessee should have hired Billy Napier from Louisiana over Josh Heupel in 2021. All right, guys, come on. Come on. That's kind of crazy to think about. Now, yes, he did bring up Jamie Chadwell, and I think there's a lot of reasons to believe in Jamie Chadwell, but the reason you couldn't hire Jamie Chadwell, and as Paul Finebaum knew this at the time, Jamie Chadwell, Tennessee hired Josh Heupel. They had just fired Jeremy Pruitt for recruiting violations, major ones. Jamie Chadwell put a program on probation and made it forfeit a bunch of games from when he was there for recruiting violations. This was pre-NIL. There was no way they could have hired Jamie Chadwell. Billy Napier did look like he was winning a lot at Louisiana, but as we now know, Heupel was the better hire. Okay, when you look at those stats, you can't even, there's no question that Tennessee made the right hire. And by the way, I wrote in 2021, I did not fully endorse the Heupel hire. I did not dismiss it either. I said I was writing for All for Tennessee, part of the Fansided Network at the time, and I wrote 5 reasons this hire could work. Okay, he called Finebaum also called the Heupel hire a swing and a miss. Okay, So now, Finebaum did soften his stance. You know when he finally softened his stance, by the way? You know when he finally decided to say maybe this hire is working? In late September of 2022, he went on ESPN and touted the Heupel hire and said that maybe this hire has worked out. And not in those exact terms, but that's basically what he said. By that point, Tennessee was 4-0 and in the top 10. And they had gone 7-6 their first year under Heupel after everybody thought there was no chance they would even make a bowl game. So come on. Where is Heupel coming from? I mean, where is Finebaum coming from on this? I think Tennessee fans should be very, very, very nonchalant about Paul Finebaum saying they won't make the playoff. Again, I think Paul Finebaum is a true fan of Tennessee. I think he does. I don't think he has it out for Tennessee. He's critical of coaches everywhere, okay? I think that he's giving his objective take. I think sometimes he goes very strong on what seems like the obvious take on the surface without looking beyond it. And I think that's what I'm criticizing Paul Finebaum for in this moment. All right. And so in this situation, trying to say that Tennessee is not going to make the college football playoff, let's just go down the schedule real quick, okay? The 2025 schedule. We've talked about this. Tennessee would have gone 11-1 last year, were not for a fluke upset loss to Arkansas. The most likely type of upset loss they could suffer this year of that type of game would be Mississippi State or Syracuse. They get Syracuse at noon to open the year. Syracuse breaks in a ton of new starters, more than even Tennessee. Tennessee has better talent. Mississippi State on the road in late September. They're not going to yet be on the level Arkansas was at last year. You could bring up Kentucky, but Tennessee always beats Kentucky. So what does that leave us with if you're Tennessee? Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. I keep saying this, provided Tennessee runs the table everywhere else, and they should run the table against Arkansas and Oklahoma, New Mexico State, East Tennessee State, and UAB at home, and Vanderbilt. They haven't really been upset yet at home under Josh Heupel. You guys can check that for me, but I'm almost certain Heupel's never been upset at home at Tennessee since he's been at Tennessee. So if Tennessee's going to be favored in all those games, they're going to win those games. At which point it comes down to Georgia, Alabama, and Florida. I just gave you guys my thoughts on Florida yesterday. Georgia, Tennessee gets to play them in September, and they may have quarterback issues. Are we sure Tennessee can't steal one of those games? And if they steal one of those games, the path to 10-2 becomes likely, and 10-2 is good enough for them to make the college football playoff. So where's Paul Finebaum coming from that Tennessee's just not going to make the college football playoff? I don't get that. That makes no sense. And I don't think Tennessee fans should really worry about Paul Finebaum saying that. I think his credibility and not believing at Tennessee is a little bit shot right now because of his track record since Heupel has been hired. So hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn your notifications on, tell a friend. Again, the show brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, why settle? Banks & Jones, by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. We're live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. When we come back, we're going to close the show with more college football playoff news as Greg Sankey spoke yesterday. Stick with us, 2 minutes off the Hook Sports.
A beacon of hope in a world of high prices. Look to the skies, Knoxville. Super Savings is here. Ted Russell Ford is East Tennessee's #1 Volume 4 dealer. Employee pricing is here. You pay what we pay on all new Ford models. Come see the super dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Now in its 45th year, The second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare. Welcome back to Off the Hook Sports. We close out our show with Greg Sankey because Greg Sankey and comments from the Big Ten leave the future of the college football playoff in limbo. We have talked about this at length, and now sources have officially come out. Sources to On3 have officially come out that the Big Ten will not back down from its college football playoff format that it wants after 2025 unless the SEC goes to 9 conference games. Now, again, to recap, the Big Ten wants automatic qualifiers for every conference. That's 4 automatic qualifiers for the SEC, 4 for the Big Ten, 2 for the ACC, 2 for the Big 12, 1 for the Group of 5, and then either 1 or 3 at-large teams, depending on how many make the actual playoff. The SEC just wants the top 5 conference champions, and the next 11 teams just seeded however they are, just the best 11 teams. That's what the SEC wants, or the next 9, depending on how many are in there. The Big Ten would get on board with the SEC's automatic qualifier model if the SEC went to 9 games. The SEC can't get an agreement from its coaches on 9 games, but Greg Sankey is so gung-ho on the automatic qualifier format that he's begging for a 9-game schedule. So while that was reported by On3, specifically Brett McMurphy on Wednesday, at the same time, Greg Sankey, speaking on ESPN in an interview Wednesday during SEC Media Days, pretty much was big with Heather Dinich that he wants a 9-game slate for the SEC. And he said a decision will be expected in the coming weeks or months. And he said, quote, "I think we should be working towards that." And he added, "My life doesn't end if we don't." There's this absolutist notion that's going to dictate, that he's going to dictate what's going to happen. I think we should have an adult conversation. We should be able to make a decision. I think 9 games would promote great interest through the year, but it would be hard to coach. I've had candid conversations with coaches. I've told them that. There's 2 reasons the SEC doesn't want to go to 9 games. Actually, 3 big reasons. One, it lessens the path to a bowl game for the mid-tier to lower-tier schools that just want to get to 6-6. The Kentuckys of the world that are content getting to 6-6 every year to get to a bowl game and get that payout. Gets a lot harder with a 9th conference game. 2, you go from 7 to 8 home games a year to 6 to 7 home games a year, which is a significant decrease in payment for you if that happens. 3, 9 conference games for the SEC is significantly tougher than 9 conference games for the Big Ten. The Big Ten doesn't want to hear that. The Big Ten is still very top heavy. That could change given their TV deals recently because of that, because of the gap in TV money. They're about to be able to buy a lot more talent, the mid-tier schools are, than the SEC. So that could change in the near future. But as of right now, 9 conference games is much tougher for the SEC than it is for the Big Ten. Okay. And all you have to do is look at the 2024 strength schedule. The reason I say that, by the way, is because all the teams in the SEC competing for college football playoff appearances do play 1 major out-of-conference game usually. Indiana played 2 Group of 5 teams that had losing records last year and a Division II school, and then played 8 of their 9 games in the Big Ten were against the 8 worst teams in the Big Ten. So you're telling me they played a tougher schedule by having a 9th Big Ten game? No, they did it. Okay. And if you go just by the FPI last year in terms of strength of schedule, all you have to do is look at that. Georgia had the top strength of schedule. Mississippi State, number 3. Texas, number 6. Florida, number 7. Kentucky, number 8. Oklahoma, number 9. Penn State, number 10. You have 6 SEC schools in the top Ten, and you had just 2 or 3 Big Ten schools: Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan. So that's the other factor. The final one, and this is the biggest one, from a money situation, 9 conference games means 8 less games overall. Now, that's 8 less Tennessee versus Austin P State on SEC Network at 4 games, at 4 in the afternoon games. Okay. The 8 less games for those extra big marquee conference games, ESPN wants, because the payout for those marquee conference games are worth 3 times as much as Tennessee Austin P at 4 on SEC Network. So they're fine with that. It doesn't change, though, for the schools. The schools get the same payout from the TV stations regardless. So what you're really seeing is just 8 less games, period, for schools. That's 8 less actual games to bring in ticket revenue, because you go from 128 total games played by schools to 120 if they have to play each other, and they each reduce a conference game. Because of that, the SEC is going to have to demand a lot more money from the TV, from the ESPN in their contract if they're going to give them a night conference game. And it won't just be enough to make up the losses of those 8 games. It's going to have to be enough to make up the losses of the potential bowl berths that they're going to get, that they're going to lose, and a lot of other things if they're going to go to 9 games. So let's play a little hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. City Heat and Air, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. CityHeatandAir.com. There's pretty much now 3 options of what's going to happen after 2025. Now, for 2025, the college football playoff format this year is this: the top 5 conference champions, and then the 7 best teams outside of that. And then they seed them, straight seeding 1 through 12, where the top 4 teams get a bye, no automatic first-round byes. And the first weekend games are played on campus at on-campus venues. Here's where we get interesting. There's only 3 options. The first option is the playoff stays as it is at 12 teams through 2026 with no changes. I'm cold on that. I mean, I don't like the byes really that much. I see a way to fix it. I'd rather reduce the playoff. That's not going to happen, than expand it. I mean, then keep it as is. I just think there's too many issues. So I'm actually cold on that. And I think that's kind of a problem if it goes that way. I'm just going to be honest with you. Option number 2. The SEC caves. The Big Ten wins out. The automatic qualifier format happens. But it happens with 14 teams, not 16. I'm cold on that, but if overall, in terms of, it's not my favorite option, but I'm hot on it if that's one of your only options, because at least that puts value in the conference races. In the automatic qualifier format, you wouldn't have an SEC championship game to determine the champion. The team that finishes first in the league during the regular season would get the number 1, would be the champion. The SEC championship game, SEC title game weekend, would be play-in games for the 3rd best team, the 4th best team, the 5th best team, and the 6th best team in the conference. Okay, I'm a big fan of that. Add some value, make it fun. I wouldn't do 3, 6, 4, 5. Honestly, I would just do 4 versus 5. Have them play each other for the chance to go. And I wouldn't go based on conference standings if you do this. I would do the top 4 ranked teams in the conference. That's how I would imagine this. Okay, I'm actually hot on that. That brings more value to the conference races. That would make it fun. The final possibility that I think will happen, given what Greg Sankey is saying, is up next. First, hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. Dare to compare.
All right, the final option, and this is what I think is going to happen. The SEC moves to 9 games and gets a better TV deal from ESPN in the process, a significantly better one. ESPN's already getting a steal on this. They might cave on this, because also here's why ESPN would cave on this. If the SEC moves to 9 games and makes it a 9-game schedule, the college football playoff expands to 16 teams. ESPN doesn't just get a better deal from the SEC with an extra conference game. They also get a better deal with more college football playoff games. Okay, because at that point, you're adding 4 other college football playoff games. ESPN would love that. So it's a huge win-win for ESPN in that moment. And I think when you take that into account, they would willingly give the SEC a huge deal for that. Timothy McGee says, so what you're saying is FCS is better at the playoff structure. I see what FCS is doing and mirror it. I mean, that's a fair point, but there are some TV revenue things that have to be worked out, Timothy, and things like that. There's bowl payouts. There's other political things that go in when you go to the FBS level. So I think the long end of this is that ESPN will cave and actually give the SEC a better deal. They would not give the deal that the Big Ten has gotten, and the SEC will still be making significantly less than the Big Ten all the way through 2034. And that's the SEC's fault for signing a dumb contract in the first place. However, it's not just what ESPN will benefit from with that new deal. So here's what the SEC is going to do. They're going to go to ESPN. They're going to go to the Big Ten and say, if I can get the conference to a 9-game schedule, will you agree to a 16-team playoff with the 5+11 format? The Big Ten will say yes. They will get that in writing. Greg Sankey will then go to ESPN and say, this is what we have. This is what we need in an increase to go to 9 conference games. He'll talk to the athletic directors at the universities at next and say, what do we need to get to 9 conference games? How much extra do you want from the cable networks? He'll tell them what they can get. They'll come up with a number. Then he'll go to ESPN and say, we need this much extra in our contract to be able to go to 9 conference games. ESPN will say, we don't know if we want to pay that much. Greg Sankey will say, I have it in writing from the Big Ten that we can expand the playoff to 16 teams, not just 12, if you go to 9 conference games for us if you give us this new deal. At that point, ESPN will cave, because it's not just a win for the SEC to have a 9th game. It's a win because ESPN gets 4 extra college football playoff games to carry. Because as of right now, the college football playoff is still on ESPN. I don't know if that'll change, but that's how it's going to play out. So we'll see how it all works out, but I think that's going to be how it ends. That's going to be the best win-win for everybody. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studio. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is your home for the finest vehicles in Knoxville, new and used, East Tennessee's largest Ford and Lincoln volume dealer. I want to thank you guys all for tuning in today. Again, we'll have a show tomorrow. It'll be a shortened show tomorrow as SEC Media Days ends, and then we will actually be off next week, okay? But we will have a show tomorrow, and then we will be off next week. Doldrums of summer, and then we'll be ready to start the preseason the week after. So you guys hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell, turn your notifications on. I will be back on tomorrow to bring you the full-on recap of SEC Media Days, including the predictions and things like that, all the fun stuff from what happens as the media days end. So stick with us. We're live every weekday at 10 a.m. Eastern, except for when we're on vacation, which is next week, with Caleb Calhoun. This has been a